Back to the earliest days of Wilsdorf and Davis, subsequently Rolex, the watches made by the company could always be returned to those who know them best for reconditioning and service. In recent years, though, Rolex has generated a lot of attention with its Rolex Certified Pre-Owned program, taking used watches and elevating them to the level of Rolex authenticated, serviced, and warranted products to be enjoyed a second, third time, and so on. But Rolex has an even more elite level of reconditioning, the Restoration Atelier in Geneva. It's a level of manual, hands-on, artisanal watchmaking, rarely seen in modern horology. It harks back to the heyday of watchmaking in the 19th and 18th century. This Rolex Cosmograph Daytona is of the transitional reference 6240. Now this came after the initial 1963 6239. This was the first to feature the screw-down crowns that would later become a distinctive feature of every Cosmograph. But at this point, the 6240, made from 1965 to 69, was the initial beneficiary. And note, it does not yet even say Oyster on the dial. Now the watch was a 1.6 million serial, launched right at the end of the line for the 6240 reference. And you could see it's a loving, almost quaint reminder of the way we were at the time. It's just under 38 millimeters in diameter, being about 37.8. It's 43.2 lug to lug, 13.4 thick, and note how much of that is the dramatic vaulted and squared off plexiglass. The plexiglass creates a lovely off-axis vintage distortion on the original Singer Exotic dial, as this configuration is known. You can see the famed lollipop sub-registers, as well as a sporting tritone of off-white, black, and red. You can also see the distinctive dropped track outboard for reading chronograph seconds and fractions of seconds. Even then, the applique logo and indices would have been considered a significant step up from the common printed dials of the time. And you can see this watch has a beautifully turned out acrylic tachymeter bezel insert, the better to gauge the speed of a race car over a kilometer. It's powered internally by a Rolex Calibre 722, which is a highly modified Valjoux 72. It's impressive in size even to this day, at 29.5 millimeters in diameter, column wheel, lateral clutch, restored by Rolex. The feel of the column wheel is world-class. It's sharp, precise, and gratifying to operate. You can see Rolex modifications include significant upgrades to the aesthetics of the bridges, the wheels, and the components. Manual wind with a 2.5 hertz beat rate and a 48-hour power reserve. It beats away on a regulator highly modified by Rolex. You can see they've gone with a free sprung balance, and they've also equipped a blued Breguet overcoil hairspring for isochronic operation in every position. On the wrist, it's light, wieldy, a real throwback. It puts you in the moment. And by that, I don't mean the current hour. I mean the flavor of the era, the sound of the engines, the slant of the high banks, the sights and sounds of motorsports back in the late 1960s in the Ford versus Ferrari era of competition. This watch is everyday wearable. Having gone through Rolex restoration, the only particular reservation that they note is due to its age. Water resistance is not guaranteed, but in every other regard, it's designed to be everyday usable thanks to the extent of the expertise and time and care invested. This is a great way to take a piece of the 24 hours of Daytona and the late 60s with you everywhere you go. Now, the watch comes back from the Restoration Atelier with a full suite of boxes, papers, and accessories. The watch will come with a Rolex Certified Pre-Owned box and travel pouch, a special Restoration Atelier wood-grained display box, and also the unique book folio, everything you need to know about the arrival of your watch, the history of the model, its technical specifications and history, plus all of the interventions performed on your exact serial number, so no two of these booklets will ever be exactly alike. Now, significantly, though the watch is on a Rolex factory leather strap with pin buckle, it will also be delivered with a period-correct Rolex Oyster bracelet. It's a 7205 with 19mm 61 end links, vintage to the mid-1960s, with a lovely nostalgic rattle to it. Now, the timepiece that you see right here is a lovely throwback, but Rolex's goal is not to make it look new. There's no polishing. There are still scratches evident on the plexiglass, the original handset and tritium lume preserved. The idea being to keep it as original as possible while making it everyday reliable and enjoyable. And that ultimately is what makes a Rolex factory restored timepiece different from any other serviced watch in the world of timepieces. Not only does it have the wonderful history of the 6240 Cosmograph, it also has the unique provenance of having been back to its makers and restored by the people who know it best. Originally gifted a Rolex Daytona 6239 by his wife Joanne Woodward, Newman became linked to the watch via photography in the popular press. Now, of course, Paul Newman today will always be remembered as being linked to that model, but he deserves to be remembered as a competitor in his own right, just as the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona deserves to be known as the most coveted trophy in all of motorsports, the winner's gift for every driver of each class-winning car at the annual 24 Hours of Daytona endurance sports car race at Daytona Beach. And that is the story of Rolex's most famous chronograph and its most famous owner. To learn more about Rolex Certified Pre-Owned and Restoration Atelier, go to our website at the1916company.com and click your way through our Rolex portal.